Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us on this edition of K24 Inside Business, the last word in business. My name is Sarah Adam. Later in the hour, we'll have a discussion that will focus on the economy, and also we'll be touching on the annual tax month. Since it's October and it's the annual tax month, we'll have that discussion later in the hour. But for now, let's take a look at what is making headlines in the world of business. Event to engage key stakeholders from different sectors. 310 million fraud incidents reported last year. And board of directors of FDB have approved loan of about 2.3 billion. Now to a top story of the day. The board of directors of the African Development Bank Group has approved loan of around 23.9 billion shillings to fund the expansion of a highway that links major economic hubs in the country. The new road will enhance traffic flow between the port of Mombasa and major centers like Nairobi. Linda Koskei tells us more.
The 5-year project will convert the 84-kilometer Kenol-Sagana-Marua road in central and eastern Kenya from a two-way single carriageway into a dual bypass and is due for completion in 2025. It will also ease transport between Nairobi and the Mount Kenya region and ultimately Ethiopia. The current Kenol-Sagana-Marua road is situated along the Great and North Road, which forms a part of the 800-kilometer stretch between Nairobi and Moyale and runs across the 5 counties of Murang'a, Kirinyaga, Machakos, Embu and Nyeri. The road is also part of the Trans-Africa Highway, commonly known as Cape to Cairo route. The project is part of the broader government's effort to improve the country's infrastructure, including the construction of 1,304 kilometers of new roads in the recent years. The bank's present portfolio in Kenya consists of 38 operations, totaling around $3.3 billion. Linda Koskei, K24, Inside a Business.
Now we move to the discussion of the day and what will make up the discussion for the day, and that is the economy. We want to look at the economy and how it is faring, and also keeping in mind the retrenchment that we've been seeing in the country. What is the cause of that? Now, Kenya's economy has been growing at 5.6%, that is in the second quarter, between April and June this year, which is slower than an expansion of 6.4% registered during a similar period last year. Now, that has been 5.6% for that particular year, that is the second quarter of the year. Now, we have agriculture, which makes up the backbone of the country. Agriculture is estimated to have grown by 4.1% compared to 6.5% in the second quarter of 2018. What needs to be done in the agriculture sector, and also how much needs to be put, especially when it comes to incentives for the farmers and ensuring that this particular sector grows. Now, the manufacturing sector grew by 4.2%. That is a 50-50 basis growth, and it's curtailed by the manufacturing of tobacco products and processing or preservation of fish. Now, this particular sector, we've seen also, keeping in mind the Big Four agenda, this sector has been so much emphasis and effort has been put in that particular sector. Now, we have electricity and water contracted to a growth rate of 5.6% compared to an expansion of 8.4% in a similar quarter in 2018. Now, the construction sector is the next one, which has been accelerating from 5.4% to 7.2%. We've seen a growth which has been supported by the ongoing public infrastructure projects, especially the construction of roads and phase 2 of the standard gauge railway. And that is how our review has been, especially the economic sector, and we've been able to see the growth of 5.6%. And joining us to discuss about this particular sector and more in the economy and also touching on the Kenya Revenue Authority is Sami Aloyo. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. He is the Director of ASMAC Global Consultant. Now, today is Annual Taxpayers Month.
Yes.
Kenya Revenue Authority, has it done enough?
Yeah, it's done enough. It's trying more. Actually, the new commissioner is trying to collect more tax. I think his perspective is to collect more tax to increase the collection for the year in 2019.
All right, and KRA has been missing targets. 2 consecutive years, they've been missing their target. Do you think this year they'll manage to at least
I think this year they'll manage, though they've reduced their target downwards, but they will still manage to collect more than they did last year. When you look at the measurements they've put in place to collect and combat tax evasion is actually up to task. I believe they'll collect more than last year. They might not collect their target, but they'll collect more than last year.
Okay.
Yes.
We've seen KRA being so strict, especially to companies that are not adhering to the law and paying their tax early enough. But at the same time, these particular companies, we've seen so many companies close shop in the country. Are we likely to see more of this year?
I believe you're going to see more closures and more laying of workers, because I believe the economy right now is still down. Our economy is still low. The infrastructure that is being built by the government has not yet started giving a feedback to the economy.
All right.
Yes.
And when we talk about the economy and the country's GDP, 5.6%, when we put these particular statistics, it seems not to reflect what is going on to the local Mwananchi down there. And they're really, really complaining. So what can be done to ensure that actually even the small and medium enterprises can be able to have access to cash and their businesses can grow?
Right now, with the interest rate cap, it's actually difficult for small, medium enterprises to access cash and individuals to access cash. So now the fact that it is difficult for them to access cash is going to be difficult for them to actually operate efficiently. For households, you can see the taxman has increased tax, especially on goods. So the purchasing power parity of a person has gone up. So the person saves, an individual person saves much lesser than they could save before. So right now the economy is still wanting. SMEs will close unless SMEs managers come up with tactful strategies to combat such.
And how can one cushion themselves from this in terms of even investing in the different sectors?
One thing is for investors is to first check where you're investing your money. The second thing is, at such a time in the economy, we need to come up with structures, and the major structure is not just to lay off workers. However, that is key because it holds a significant amount of expenses. That's not key. What investors need to do now is to re-strategize. The business has a business lifeline. You need to check your business. Why is it? Is it at the boom? Is it at the recession? What strategies do we employ? And different strategies have to be employed at different sections in the business.
All right. And when it comes to government incentives, which sectors do you think needs a boost to ensure that actually it can offer even employment opportunities across? I
believe what the government is doing now, agricultural sector is key. And I think the government is key on improving the agricultural department and the sector in the country. One is manufacturing. One thing the government could do is reduce costs on fast importation, because high cost of importation have actually sent SMEs to increasing their prices of operation, which makes them make losses. That's the exit in the market.
All right. And when it comes to the ICT sector and when it comes to the youth, precisely, the government has been putting a lot of effort. What do you think the youth can do to ensure that they actually tap in this particular sector? Because it seems there's a lot of potential in this sector. I
believe what the youth, first training. The government has produced, actually has the infrastructure is there, but the youth lack training. They lack enough sufficient training. So what the youth need to do is go for training. First, training in the ICT department. We have different sections in the ICT department. First is training. Training is very important. And the government needs to sensitize the youth on the opportunities that are available in the ICT sector.
Okay, and what do you think are the main challenges that are actually obstructing us or not making our, like for instance, when you come to agriculture, yes, our export market has gone down.
Yes.
So how can we actually propel this particular sector to ensure that we equip even the smallholder farmers to ensure that they know about the export market?
The export market has gone down not just because of the farmer, but because of the government. Because our operational costs are actually very high, and our taxation here is very high. So when you compare commodities that we produce locally to other regions are cheaper. So most people go for the cheaper regions to actually import from the cheaper regions. That leaves us a loophole, and therefore when you compare our imports and our exports, they're actually different in a very big way. So the government needs to reduce taxes on manufacturing locally, actually, and give them incentives like tax havens, tax leap year, like 10 years before you could start paying tax. That could actually give them an incentive to manufacture more.
Okay, and one of the reports we got from the Kenya Revenue Authority are the tax incentives and tax rebates that they've been giving out that have contributed or attributed for them not to actually meet their targets.
Yes.
So do you think this is a really good move, especially with KRA complaining that the reason they're not meeting their target is because of these particular incentives that the government keeps giving to investors?
But you see, these incentives are long-term. KRA is looking for what they can collect now to sustain the budget. But what the government is giving is for the long term. For example, a manufacturing company that manufactures goods will take a while before it starts to profit. So the government is looking at the long term, so that's why they're giving incentives. But the taxman is looking at currently what do I need to collect so that I can sustain my budget. So I believe it's the government which is discussed with the taxman so that they can see a balance, because the government also needs to collect revenue.
All right. And when it comes to the Nairobi Securities Exchange, we've seen investors also leaving that particular sector. Yeah. We've seen foreign investors exiting the BOUS. When is the right time for somebody to actually invest in the BOUS?
The Security Exchange is actually technical. You will need to actually be active in the market so that you can know when to invest and when not to invest. Sometimes it doesn't really go with the economy. It goes with the demand. Yes, however, right now companies are struggling, and most exits are because investors are seeing there's no profit making in the long term. So people are exiting this market to invest elsewhere where they could get their returns easily.
All right. Yeah. And when you talk about exiting of foreign investors at the BOUS, at the same time we're seeing so many companies close shop, especially in the retail sector. Yes. We are seeing Chop is closed shop, Nakumat has closed a number of its branches, and still there are mergers in between in the retail sector. So going forward, this particular sector has suffered. Going forward, do you think it's going to be stable enough?
Not really. I believe in the next few coming months, you're going to see more layoffs because the economy is not still there yet. The infrastructure that the government has invested on has not yet started giving back to the economy. The SGR, not yet. The roads and the buildings, not yet. So the agricultural sector, not yet. So until these sectors actually, because agriculture produces raw materials. So when you can be able to produce raw materials locally at a cheaper price, then manufacturing will be easy. So the reduction of costs on operational costs on manufacturing departments, that will take a while before it's there, but I think we are moving forward. But I believe the time the stimulus will start paying back to the economy, it will be a good place.
All right. And keeping in mind that the economic situation in the country is not so good, do you think investors will be lured to actually come back and put their money in the country?
I believe when the economic stimulus, the infrastructure, what the government is doing with the Big Four agenda starts paying back to the economy, I believe investors will come back to the economy. Okay. Because the investor looks at where will they invest and get their money back in a short period of time.
All right. And what are some profitable sectors that one can invest in and be able to get returns?
Really, I believe all sectors are profitable. It just depends on the strategies. And actually, the investor himself, what are you investing for? Is it the short term? Is it the long term? You need to have information first before you invest. But the most lucrative sector right now is the schooling sector. The education sector. The education sector is the most lucrative at the moment because students have to learn. If are grown-ups, they have to go to university. So that is the most lucrative business. However, the SMEs, selling and trading, that is normal. You just need to have your strategy in place for you to outweigh the market challenges.
Okay. Do you think the repealing of the interest rate cap will help the SMEs?
It will help the SMEs, but it also will actually open them up to banks that take advantage of SMEs. Because once that one is repealed off, that means the banks will take advantage as it was before. However, the SMEs will get money to operate quickly. They'll get loans cheaper and quickly, but then the cost associated with it will go higher.
All right, and, and still on matters SMEs, other than repealing the interest rate cap and them using microfinance, which is not actually capped, what can they do to be able to actually access credit? One,
what you need to do is first make sure your credit rating is actually efficient and it's positive. That is the first significant thing, because even banks right now are going back to the CRB to check your credit rating. Two, when you want to borrow, you need to know the reason to borrow. Why are you borrowing? Never borrow to spend, borrow to build your business.
All right, never borrow to spend.
Yes.
But then at the same time, you're saying we're at a credit crunch. The margins over someone's salary. So how much of one's salary can be used to actually pay rent? How much should one use to pay rent and be able to save?
It depends with the person himself or herself. Once you're doing, for example, if you have your monthly salary, you need to calculate rent should not go beyond your 20%. Then your health, education, food, around 60%. So you need to actually be saving 20% of your salary every month for you to have an easy time in the future. So 20% is relative for your savings.
All right. And let's move to the banking sector. We've seen mergers in the banking sector, and also they've recorded a profit and despite the fact that the interest rate cap is there. Going forward, how do you see our financial sector?
The banking sector, more banks are going to merge. The banking sector, actually the interest cap, more banks, just expect more banks to merge. Because when you look at now banks are not lending. That is where they got. That's where banks get most of their income. Where they're not lending, they're not charging interest, meaning their interest is low. They might be making profit, but the profit is not sustainable. So for them to sustain their operations, banks will need to merge up. Especially the third-tier banks, they're going to be merging very soon.
All right, and one of the issues are saying they're not being able to give credit to individuals is because of the credit risk that is involved with it. But then they're giving the same money at a lower interest to the government. If the government decides to cap that, do you think it will create room for them to actually give to SMEs?
The government, that is the safest place any bank could lend. And the government capped. The reason why, when you look on the flip side, the reason why the government capped the interest rate is actually to make government borrowing cheap to the economy. So when the government borrows, the interest is not so high. But for the common man, if the government is going to repeal off this interest rate, the government also is going to borrow at a high rate, meaning also the government is going to spend more on interest. So I believe it's a 50-50 take. The government, I believe, might want to reevaluate the interest rate cap, maybe push it a bit higher.
All right. And when it comes to the ICT sector, we've seen also the banks laying off, but their main reason for laying off is because of digital disruption that has come in and been able to replace human beings. Are we going to see this in other sectors as well?
Yes. Expect that in other, actually 90% of the sectors, because it is efficient to be digital. It saves on costs. All companies and most companies will want to save on costs. Employment is actually costly when it comes to the labor laws and everything. So most companies will be looking for automation and actually phasing out the human capital aspect of it. So most companies are going to adapt that strategy.
Most companies will adapt that strategy. And when it comes to cushioning investors and cushioning just normal mwananchi in these economic shocks, what can they do?
First, for an individual, for a business, you need to reevaluate your strategies. You need to check clearly where your business lies, which position is it? Is it in a boom? Is it a recession? Is it stagnant? Then you reevaluate your strategies. First, and then second is save more, try to save more, reduce operational costs. For individuals, make sure you spend where it's necessary.
Okay, thank you very much, Sami Aloyo. He's been able to talk about the economy and retrenchment that has been going on, and also he's been able to touch different sector. And moving on from that, Kenya's local manufacturing sector has received a boost after SMC Motors finally announced the completion of new range of Renault trucks at Kenya Vehicle Manufacturers plant in Thika. While launching the truck series, SMC Motors revealed that they would increase their stake in Kenya Vehicle Manufacturers to enable it assemble more units locally and attract new jobs. Linda Kosgei with this report.
Kenya is now home to many notable multinationals who continue to set up their businesses here each day. Renault Trucks Africa, through partnerships with listed firm SMC Motors, have dedicated technology, expertise and financing in increasing its activities in the local manufacturing scene.
We have completely renewed all our ranges few years ago after 7 years project and 2.5 billion euros investment. These new ranges were launched first in Europe in 2014, and our flagship, the Renault Trucks T, was awarded International Trucks of the Year in 2015.
The government is now developing the national automotive policy, which will give direction on how the industry can be improved.
We have made significant reforms that are driving our policy agenda for sustained economic growth and social development through investment attraction. Deliberate efforts have been made to improve the business environment in the country in order to attract investment, both local and foreign.
The national automotive policy, which further seek to address a range of issues in the industry, spanning from shop floor matters to out-of-factory collaborations with stakeholders, which will include strong partnership between the government and investors in the industry, technology transfer, market creation through leasing, local content development plan and market expansion. Linda Kosgei, K24 Business.
Now moving on, enhanced surveillance helped Insurance Regulatory Authority IRA block 310.48 million fraud incidents last year, mostly from motor vehicle owners and insurance agents. The regulator disclosed its 2018 annual report that the blocked fraud came in year as Investigative Arm Insurance Fraud Investigation Unit received and detected 91 cases, down from 168 the previous year. Of the 91 cases reported last year, majority came from motor vehicle insurance and ranged from fraudulent accident claims to fake car theft claims. Agents followed with 19 cases, down from previous year's 56, mainly being theft and commission fraud. The report does not, however, disclose the amount of money that was at stake the previous year.
Those ones with number plates.
Over 133 families of retrenched civil servants in Taita Taveta are languishing in poverty despite working for the government for over 35 years. Chairman of the Taita Taveta Retrenched Civil Servants, Davis Mwarugitha, says they are yet to receive their pension 20 years on, even after the court made a ruling in 2015 that they paid. Caroline Jenga with this detail.
According to the Kenya Integrated Household Budget Survey, about 1 in 6 households receive pension savings as a regular income averaging 2,106 shillings monthly. Davis Moriga, chairman of Taita Taveta Retrenched Civil Servants, takes us down memory lane when he received his retrenchment letter in 2000.
Mwaka 2000 tukapata barua za kwenda nyumbani. Hizo barua, watu walipopata hizo barua wengine walishutuka. Hata nakumbuka wawili walishutuka wakaenda resi wakafa.
He says his life has not been easy as they have not been able to receive their pension savings 20 years on.
Tulipotoka hapo ikabidi sasa tukakaa tumechanganyikiwa. Watoto wangu walikuwa college. Sasa ikawa ni vigumu, itakuwaje? Ikabidi hapo sasa tunakaa nyumbani. Mama kidogo alikuwa na kibarua ndio alikuwa anasaidia watoto ile wakamaliza college.
Kia mwaka wa huo ni ambao tulipotoka 2000 mpaka wa leo maisha yakawa yamebadilika, na huku nina mke na nina watoto. Haya masomo naye kwa upande wa watoto ikaja kawa ni shida.
After retrenchment, they went to court and a judgment was made with a decree directing that they should be paid.
Kesi ilianza Nakuru, kaja Nairobi. Ilikuwa namba 1649 of 2001. Tukaendelea kwa High Court. 2015 judgment ikatolewa na Judge Rosemary Nabue, tulipo haki yetu.
Davis said 28 retrenched civil servants whom he was working with have succumbed to death while still following up the money. Some of them are sick at their homes while others are battling with life in poverty. Most of them couldn't afford to pay school fees for their children, forcing them to drop out. Mary Mkeke, 60 years, who worked at Ministry of Agriculture as subordinate staff for over 23 years, accused the government of sacking them without reason or notice.
Na hiyo kazi nikaifanya kwa miaka 21 kwa uaminifu. Hakuna siku serikali imenipatia barua ya warning. Hakuna siku nimehepa kazi kwa sababu nilipenda kazi yangu, kwa sababu ilikuwa inanilelea watoto wangu. Na nilikuwa na matumaini kwamba hiyo kazi ndio itanifundisha watoto wangu. Hiyo kazi ndio itanipatia makao. Hiyo kazi ndio itanipatia maisha.
She said they were given 40,000 as a golden handshake, which is not even enough to build her a home nor pay school fees for her children. Caroline Jenga, K24 Inside Business.
Now let's take a look at how the Forex is performing and also the shares at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. We want to see the top gainers and top losers of the day. We want to see their performance. We have top gainers of the day. We have Flame Trim Group, and the share price is at 2.31 and the percentage change is at 10%. And we have Kenya Airways, which comes in at number 3, and the share price is at 2.58 and the percentage change is at 5.74%. The top gainers of the day. Now let's take a look at the top losers of the day. We have IGAD at 12.5 share price, and the percentage change is at negative 9.75. And we have Liberty Kenya, and the share price is at 9.74 and the percentage change is at negative 8.11%. These are the top gainers and losers of the day. And let's take a look at how the shilling is performing against other major currencies. We want to see how the Kenyan shilling is performing against other major currencies. We have the US dollar, which is buying at 103.74 cents and selling at 103.94 cents. And we have the sterling pound, which is at 127.47 cents, buying and selling at 127.76 cents. And we have the euro, that is at 113.72, buying and selling at 113.97. And we have the rand at 6 shillings and 87 cents, buying and selling at 6 shillings and 89 cents. And we have the Tanzanian shillings, which is at 22.07 cents, buying and 22.20 cents, selling. And we have the Ugandan shillings at 35.33 cents, buying and selling at 35.50 cents, selling. And that is how our Forex is looking like. And we've been able to look at the top gainers and top losers of the day. And that is how we wrap up Inside Business, the last word in business. My name is Sarah Adam. Up next is Newscast with Shiksha Arora.